Are you actually responsible for what your ancestors did? An argument that I see from the comment section of my TikTok all the way to the floor of Congress is, I didn't do any of these things in the past. It wasn't me, and therefore I bear no responsibility. And on the one hand, there is actually a logic to this. There's kind of a spectrum that you can see, right? If I slap you and then you say, ouch, and I say, well, that was the past, I'm not really worried about that, I don't bear any responsibility, that would be stupid. But that would be just as stupid as if you came up to me and you said, hey, did you know that the Visigoths sacked Rome or something? And I was like, yeah, but that wasn't me. So whether or not it bears truth in this particular example, there's a kind of logic to things that happened way in the past don't affect us anymore, right? I mean, on one hand, read this book. This is one that talks about this issue, Kindred by Octavia Butler. The hand of the past does reach across time in many examples. Or even watch some of my previous videos. We've talked about the infant birth weight discrepancy. We've talked about the asthma gap. There are many examples of how America's broken racial history actually reaches across time. Now, I personally have lost a lot of faith in academic philosophy for reasons I can discuss in other videos or Q&As if you're interested, but I did read a philosopher recently who gave me some language that I think is very useful. Albert Moseley wrote an essay in defense of affirmative action where he gives a philosophical thought experiment that I think is worth your time. People hear about thought experiments in the context of physics, and Einstein famously used thought experiments to understand several key concepts in physics and relativity. But philosophers use them too. And this example works because it kind of gets rid of some of the fluff. It gets rid of all the things that might make you feel one way or another and focuses on the exact issue. And I'm going to simplify it because it's kind of convoluted. There's two tennis players. One of the tennis players is brutally murdered, and the other tennis player ends up taking up more of the spotlight, making more money, winning more tournaments because this other tennis player was killed. The tennis player who's still alive is named Jim. Jim is making a bunch of money because of something violent that happened to someone else. Does Jim owe that money to anyone? Should he give it to the widow? Should he give it to someone else? Does he owe that money to anyone? The originator of the thought experiment says no. Jim's in the clear. Jim was an innocent bystander, and just because something tragic happened to somebody else doesn't mean Jim owes anybody anything. And this is the argument that many people are making when they say, I wasn't there, I didn't do anything, I have nothing to do with the past, and therefore I bear no personal responsibility. But that's where Moseley extends the thought experiment. Imagine instead that the person who was murdered was killed by someone who deliberately wanted Jim to succeed. He's not an innocent bystander, he's an accidental beneficiary.